Hey guys, welcome back to the Curly Reader. My name's Amanda, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 5 more books that I've read recently. Alright, so if you missed the previous announcement, I am changing the way that I'm doing my wrap-ups here for the foreseeable future. We'll readjust if need be. But from now on, I am going to be sharing with you in 5 book increments, books that I've read recently. That way it keeps the videos a little bit shorter, and you can kind of get an idea of what I'm reading closer to the time that I'm actually reading it. So I have 5 books to share with you today. Let's just kind of get into it. I have 4 4-star books and 1 2-star book to share with you today. So I really liked most of the books that I read in this grouping of books. But I did have one book that just did not work for me, and that is The Book of Lost Names by Kristen Harmel. I did not care for this book. For me, this one just didn't go quite deep enough. And there were way too many really convenient plot points for me to get on board with this. So this is a historical fiction book that takes place during World War II in France, and it follows Eva, who is a college-age woman that is living in Paris, I believe, and has to be evacuated. She is of Jewish descent. She goes into hiding and she starts working with the resistance movement to forge documents. So she works as a forger and uses special inks and papers to forge documents that other people of Jewish descent or other people fleeing Nazi occupied France would need to get across borders and those sorts of things. And then we also have a secondary timeline that is in the future where this elderly woman needs to go to Germany to get this lost book that she saw on TV or something along those lines, which I did not care a lick about the secondary timeline, which kind of is on par for dual timeline books for me, historical fiction books. But that's the gist of what's going on in this book. The things I thought were done well in this book. I really enjoyed learning about the forging process, and this is based, I believe, off of like real events or a real person or something along those lines. Like this was a real thing that happened, which I always really appreciate that in historical fiction books. But for me, there were just way too many conveniences that I couldn't get on board with. I could go into very specific things. I read this for a book club, and at the book club meeting, I'm like, I could have rewritten the ending of this book and it would have been a million times better. More people would have died, because to make it through a scenario like she did and everybody turn out alive at the end is just completely unrealistic. This very much had a tied up in a nice little bow and everybody lives happily ever after vibe to it, which is not realistic for a World War II historical fiction book. No thank you. There were also just some other plot devices and plot points that didn't make a lot of sense and could have been reworked a little bit and finagled a little bit to make it so much more realistic. And as someone who reads a lot of historical fiction, this one just didn't cut it for me. And so unfortunately, that one got 2 stars. And I've heard that this is pretty typical for Kristen Harmel books. So I don't know if I will be reading her in the future, but you can try to sell me on that in the comments down below if you feel so inclined. All right, now on to the books that I really enjoyed. The first of which is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. I gave into the hype, guys. Everybody was reading this book. And so I went ahead and I got it from my library. It was like a 6-hour audiobook. She narrates the book herself. And so I figured, why the heck not, right? Jennette McCurdy was a child actress. She starred in the Nickelodeon series iCarly, and she got her start in acting at a very young age because of her mother. Her mother really wanted her to become an actress and really kind of forced her into it. She was heavily abused by her mother. Her mother encouraged her to develop eating disorders and things along those lines. So this book really delves into child actors and kind of what's expected of them in Hollywood and the adult expectations that we put on children in Hollywood, but also Jennette McCurdy's specific experiences with her family, and specifically with her mother and the toxic relationship that she had with her mother. I really, I have a hard time saying enjoyed listening to this book because I didn't enjoy it, but I found it very insightful, and I really appreciated Jeanette's point of view on, or not even point of view, it's her story. It's not like she made it up. This is her life. And so I just appreciated it. I'll say that. It was easy to listen to. Her narration style is, I'm sure, much like her personality, where she's just kind of very blunt. And I particularly care for, I liked it. And so I thought it was very interesting to hear about. I've read or I've watched a couple of interviews with her also, and just I really admire her being able to tell this story because it is a very I'm sure it's not, she's not alone. I'll just say that. I'm sure she's not the only one that went through this. And I think the more that we are, have our eyes open to these sorts of scenarios, we know what to look out for, and we know what to kind of caution ourselves against moving forward. And so, yeah, I give this one 4 stars. Like I said, I can't say I enjoyed it, but I definitely really appreciated it. All right. Another one that I read that I really, really liked, I got from NetGalley, and it's called The Godparent Trap. This is by Rachel Van Dyken, and it's already come out. So I read it, but it's already come out. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, this is a contemporary romance that follows Colby and Rip. They, like, whenever I talk about this, I'm like, I kind of use my hands. So Colby's best friend and Rip's best friend are married, but Rip and Colby's best friend are brother-sister. Does that make sense? So you have Colby, Rip's best friend, Colby's best friend, and then these two are brother-sister. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, so Rip and Colby are the godparents of their best friend's kids, and at the very beginning of the book, something happens and they pass away. And so Colby and Rip move into this house and have to parent their 2 children together. And they don't get along at all. Colby and Rip. Total polar opposites. Colby is a free spirit. She is a food blogger. She, or a travel blogger, something along those lines. Anyway, so she just kind of is into the social media world and just is kind of a free spirit. And Rip is like an accountant and very straight-laced, and you're on a schedule. And if you're organized, you could be functional, and doesn't understand how things don't get done on time. And so they don't get along at all. And they're thrown into this scenario where they both love these kids and they're both grieving, and they have to parent these kids together now. And it's a romance, so you can kind of see where it goes. It is open door. There is some language in it, but I loved it. And I specifically loved the perspective of the stay-at-home mom versus the working dad, and then the stay-at-home dad versus the working, like that balance between wanting to be at home with the kids but needing some time away, and feeling overwhelmed with when you're at home all day, but then feeling guilty when you're not there. And so that whole balance between the two, I could really relate to. And I loved it. I thought the humor was perfection. And this book gave me all the feels. I have a friend in real life that I've been telling, like, you have to read this book because it made me just happy. So anyway, that was The Godparent Trap by Rachel Van Dyken. All right, next on this list is The Swimmers by Julie Otsuka. This is one that I have a really, really hard time explaining. This is definitely very high literary fiction, and it's a very short book that is broken into 4 sections. And so, like, the first section is about this swimming pool this community swimming pool that these people all go to. It's told in a collective we narration style, and it's like going through the rules of the pool and who goes to the pool and all of this. The second section talks about this crack that develops at the bottom of the pool and how they deal with it and the pool eventually shutting down. And then the third section really delves into one person that went to the pool's specific story of dealing with dementia and gets into kind of her experience with dementia. And then the fourth section is told from the point of view more of her daughter and how she's dealing with her mother's dementia. And so it kind of like progresses over the book. It was I called my mom when I got done reading this and I'm like, I need you to listen to this because I don't know how to explain it and I don't know what it's about, but I know it made me feel something. And I don't really know how to explain it outside of that. Like I said, it's very literary, which is not my normal read, but it was so beautiful. And when I got done with it, I just wanted to sit with it. And I don't even know how to explain how it made me feel. I just know it made me feel. And so that to me is a sign of a successful book. Like it just made me feel. And it was so well done. I got this off of a podcast that I listened to from the front porch, on the front porch, something along those lines. It's from Bookshelf Thomasville, their podcast. And the owner of this bookstore in Georgia was talking about how this was her favorite book of the year so far. And so I'm like, I'll listen to it. Who knows? And it was so different, like I said, from anything that I've read. And not my typical cup of tea at all, but so beautiful and so good. And so, yeah, I gave this one 4 stars. Yeah. Okay. Moving along. The next one that I have to share with you is Sunreach by JC Patterson, and Brandon Sanderson. This is the first novella. I say that like this because it's the length of a full-length novel, but they're called novellas for the Skyward series, which is a series by Brandon Sanderson. It's a sci-fi young adult series that I've been reading through, and this is a book that comes between book 2 and book 3 in the series, and this is FM's story. So if you have read Skyward or Starsight, you will know who FM is, but she is a friend of Spensa from the main, who is the main character in the main storyline. And this is told from FM's point of view and kind of tells her story of what's going on Detritus during the time kind of the end of book 2 and then kind of moving forward. So I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. The writing was a little bit more YA angsty, and by a little bit, I mean like not just a little bit, a lot of it more YA angsty than I prefer. Definitely more angsty than the main books in the series have been so far, but I still really enjoyed the story. And so, I mean, I'm here for this series, guys. So those are the 5 books that I wanted to share with you today. If you have read any of these books, I would love to hear your comments about them down below. You can also check them out in the description. I have all of the books linked down below as well if you are interested. And yeah, let me know what you're reading recently or what you have read recently. Anyway, that's going to do it for today. I hope that you enjoy this. I hope that you stick around and subscribe. And until next time, see ya.